She stole every penny I was meant to inherit. But I didn't just fight back. I exposed her lies and made the whole family turn on her. Watch to the end. You won't believe what happens. I found out at my mother's funeral. Not through a whisper, not through a lawyer, but through the smirk on my sister's face as she slipped a ring off my mom's cold, dead hand. It was 2:13 p.m. I know because I looked at my watch. I was holding a single rose. My hands were shaking. Not from grief. From rage. Her name is Danielle. And from the moment we were born, she played perfect. The golden child. The angel. My mother called her my little light. Me? I was the shadow. But my mother was fair. That's what I believed. Until I saw Danielle pull a key from her pocket, our family's old safe key, and smile like she'd won. And I realized, in that exact moment, she knew something I didn't. The will wasn't what we thought. The inheritance wasn't going where it should. And I was about to lose everything my mother ever meant to give me. Unless I stopped her. Unless I exposed her. Unless I turned the family that worshipped her into a crowd of witnesses to her fall. Red triangle pointed down, but to do that, I'd have to become the villain in a story she thought she'd already written. The rain came down like knives that morning. Not soft. Not poetic. Just sharp, cold, and mean. Like the world already knew what kind of day this was going to be. I stood 3 feet from the casket. Black heels sunk slightly in the mud. I hadn't cried yet. Not because I didn't care, but because I didn't believe it. I kept waiting for my mother to sit up, make a joke about how tacky the flowers looked, and tell us all to go home. But she didn't. Instead, Danielle made sure everyone saw her dab her eyes, lean against her boyfriend, clutch Mom's pendant in her shaking hand like it had always belonged to her. It hadn't. Mom gave it to me when I turned 18. She said, "This is yours, Anna. No matter what happens. You hear me." But Danielle had it now. Because somehow, she always had a way of taking what was mine. I stayed after the burial. Everyone else had left. Even Danielle. I just couldn't move. Something didn't feel finished. Like the ground had closed over more than a body. Like secrets had been buried with her. When I finally walked back to the house, our childhood home, I didn't know why I went to the attic. I just knew I had to. That's when I found the envelope. Stuffed behind an old box labeled Zmaz 1999 was a pale blue envelope with my name on it. Not to Anna. Just Anna. Inside was a letter. My mother's handwriting. Her scent. Her honesty. If you're reading this, I didn't get the chance to tell you in person. I changed the will last month. Everything goes to you. I love Danielle, but she's lost herself in greed and appearance. I'm trusting you to do what's right. I froze. Everything goes to me. But then, why did Danielle have the key? Why did she look so smug? Unless she already knew, and she'd already done something. When I confronted her that night, she acted confused. Inheritance. What inheritance? She poured herself wine, wore our mother's bracelet like it was always hers. You took the key, Danny. I tried to keep my voice calm. You knew about the safe. About the letter. You were in the attic. She tilted her head and gave me the fakest sympathetic look I've ever seen. You've been under a lot of stress, Anna. Maybe you imagined it. Gaslighting. On day 1, I walked out before I broke something. But that's when I realized, if she was going to lie this easily, she was capable of more. Much more. The lawyer's office smelled like dust and lemon polish. Danielle showed up late. Wore white. Who wears white to a will reading? The lawyer opened the document. I leaned forward. So did Danielle. But when he started reading, I realized something was wrong. Everything had been switched. The house. To Danielle. The savings? Split 70/30ths. Her favor. The heirlooms. To be divided as per Danielle's judgment. Danielle beamed. I sat frozen. Numb. I opened my purse. Pulled out the original letter. Where's this version of the will? I asked coldly, placing it on the table. The lawyer's face drained of color. Danielle's smile cracked. She hadn't counted on that letter. Red triangle pointed down, and that's when I knew I had her. The rest of that day was a blur. The lawyer stammered about dates. Maybe your mother changed it again, he said. This version is the latest. But it wasn't, because I found a receipt, tucked in the same envelope. A notarized receipt, dated after Danielle's version. Mom had gone to a second attorney. She'd updated the will again. Quietly, just in case. I had proof. But I didn't go to court. Not yet. First, I wanted to see how far Danielle would go. So I played along. Let her move into the house. Let her think she'd won. Let her show her true self to everyone. And trust me, they saw it. She stole the house, the money, the heirlooms, and worst of all, my mother's name. But she didn't know I had the truth. I had the receipt. I had the will. I had the letter. All I needed was time. Because the moment I stopped trying to prove myself to my sister was the moment I realized I didn't need justice. I needed revenge. I didn't take her to court. Not yet. Not because I couldn't, but because I wanted it to hurt. I wanted her to lose the thing that mattered most to her. Her reputation, her image, her control. She had everything she ever wanted now. The house, the praise, the spotlight. And like every narcissist who thinks they've won, she got sloppy. I watched her move into Mom's home like she was the grieving widow of a royal dynasty, throwing brunches, hosting dinners, giving away furniture like it was hers to give. The neighbors loved her. At first. So I did what any good villain would do. I smiled, and I started building my army. Funny thing about inheritance? It makes people show who they really are. My Aunt Gloria reached out first. She gave Danielle everything she asked me on the phone. She didn't even mention your mother's second will? I asked. Dead silence. Turns out, Gloria had helped Mom notarize the second will. She knew. She had copies. And Danielle had conveniently left her off the guest list for the reading. By the end of the week, I had 3 allies. Aunt Gloria, Cousin Drew, who Danielle forgot to return jewelry to, and a family friend named Linda, who claimed Danielle had offered to sell her mom's antique piano for $10,000 cash. I let them talk. I let them connect the dots. And I waited. Then came the social media posts. The house looks so small now that Mom's gone. Finally redesigning this tired old kitchen. Giving away some dusty family junk. DM me if you want vintage. My blood boiled. But I stayed silent. Because every post made her look worse. Every comment thread? Another crack in her carefully crafted mask. She's grieving, people would say. She deserves to do what makes her feel better. Sure. But grief doesn't explain why she sold Mom's pearls to a pawn shop. Or why she listed our grandfather's war medals on Facebook Marketplace. That's when Ethan gave me the idea. Ethan was my boyfriend. Patient. Kind. Too smart for his own good. He'd stayed quiet, but he saw everything. You don't need to fight her, he said one night. You just need to remind people who your mother really was. That's when I knew what to do. I planned an event. A public one. In Mom's honor. A memorial garden dedication at her favorite park. The same one she took me to as a kid. The same one where she helped fundraise for a butterfly habitat. I invited everyone. Family. Friends. Local press. And I didn't tell Danielle until 2 days before. She texted back. You're doing this without me? That's disgusting. I replied. It's what Mom would have wanted. You're welcome to come. She didn't show. But 150 people did. That day, I gave a speech. Simple. Honest. Tearful, but not dramatic. I told the story about the day Mom gave me her pendant. I shared her final letter, without saying anything about the will. I quoted her words. It's not about who deserves it. It's about who protects it. The crowd was still. Then someone in the front row whispered, that's not what Danielle said. And suddenly, people started asking questions. One woman asked why Danielle wasn't there. Someone else muttered something about selling antiques online. By the time I left, my inbox was full of messages. I didn't know she changed the will. Wait, Danielle told me you didn't want anything. Do you still have that piano? Danielle said it was broken. The seeds were planted. The roots took hold. Now it was time to water them. The next day, I called the lawyer. The one who'd read Danielle's version of the will. Are you aware my mother had a second, more recent will? I asked. Pause. I am now. I sent him the documents. The notarized date. The letter. The statement from Aunt Gloria. I watched as he shifted from smug to terrified. This is serious. Yes, I said. Yes, it is. He agreed to launch an inquiry. Quietly. Officially. I hung up. Then I sent Danielle one text. You should check your mail. And maybe your conscience. Her reply? You wouldn't dare. I smiled. Too late, sister. Red triangle pointed out because I already had. It took exactly 3 days. 3 days after I sent the will, the letter, and Aunt Gloria's affidavit to the attorney. 3 days before the house of cards Danielle built, on charm, deceit, and entitlement, started to crumble. I got the call on a Tuesday afternoon. I remember because I was holding my coffee, staring at an old photo of Mom on the mantel. She looked so calm in that picture. Proud. Holding her garden shears like they were medals of honor. The phone rang. Miss Whitmore. Yes. This is Attorney Preston. There's a lot to unpack. Go on, I thought. Unpack it. Turns out Danielle hadn't just forgotten about the second will. She intercepted it. She'd been notified of it by Mom's paralegal 2 weeks before Mom died. And instead of disclosing that new document, she played dumb, hired a private lawyer, and held her own reading. Notarized forgery wasn't off the table, Preston told me. Forgery. My sister might have forged a will. Or destroyed one. Either way, it was now a legal issue. They've initiated a review, Preston said. If this is what it looks like, your sister could be liable for serious consequences. And the estate? We're freezing it. Effective immediately. Her money. Her lifestyle. All frozen. And it was just the beginning. I didn't even have to say anything. Danielle's actions said it all. One by one, the family started pulling away from her. Texts that used to be instant became delayed. Invitations dried up. Her shiny brunches turned into pity parties with half-empty chairs. Aunt Gloria began telling people what she knew. Cousin Drew posted a cryptic tweet. Funny how people pretend to grieve when they're just cashing checks. Linda, yes, the piano woman, messaged me. Danielle told me your mom wanted her to sell those things. I'm so sorry. I had no idea. The group chat that once buzzed with wedding plans and housewarming photos. Dead silent. Danielle tried damage control, of course. A few posts about fake news. One quote about jealous siblings. A photo of her wearing Mom's locket with the caption, "She lives through me." But the more she tried, the worse it looked. Because people had started to remember. Danielle was always calculated. But she wasn't used to not being in control. So she started unraveling. First, it was the angry voicemails, rambling half-threats about how I was manipulating everyone and ruining the family. Then it was the late-night texts. You always had it out for me. I'm the only one who stayed after Mom died. She would have wanted me to have it all. And finally, a voice memo at 3:16 a.m. Her voice, drunk or cracked or both. You don't deserve any of this. You never did. You were just the mistake that came before me. I didn't respond. I forwarded it straight to Preston. Let her bury herself. Then, the real shift happened. Drew called me. Hey, you free? I think you should hear something. We met at a diner just off the highway, halfway between his apartment and mine. He brought a flash drive. He also brought receipts. Literal receipts. Turns out, Danielle had been quietly liquidating assets, selling antiques, transferring funds, before the will was even officially read. But more than that, she'd moved $75,000 from the estate's joint trust into a private investment account under her boyfriend's name. A boyfriend she never told anyone about. And here's the kicker. That account belonged to someone already under federal investigation for tax fraud. Yep, she tied the inheritance to a ticking time bomb. She's not just greedy, Drew said. She's stupid. I didn't out her right away. Instead, I printed the receipts. I printed the trust logs, the sale listings, and I sent copies in unmarked envelopes to every family member, her lawyer, her church friends, the HOA president who adored her, her ex-boyfriend, the one before the fraudster. By the weekend, she was radioactive. People stopped taking her calls. The estate lawyer filed a formal injunction. And the board of trustees managing Mom's charitable donations, they removed Danielle as honorary liaison. She showed up at my door. Tears. Rage. A full tantrum at 10 a.m. on a Sunday. You're destroying me, she screamed. No, I said calmly. I'm just showing them who you really are. She lunged forward like she wanted to hit me. But Ethan stepped outside. Quiet. Calm. Built like a wall. Danielle froze. And then she said something I'll never forget. You were always the weak one. That's why I did it. Because you never would. She was right about one thing. I never would have. But I'm not weak anymore. When Danielle left my doorstep that Sunday morning, mascara streaked and screaming, the air felt clearer than it had in months. I stood there for a long moment, letting the quiet settle. No words. No apologies. Just silence. But inside, something had shifted. I wasn't angry anymore. I was focused. This wasn't just about revenge. This was about rewriting the script. This was about legacy. And I wasn't going to let Danielle taint what our mother left behind. By the end of the week, Danielle's entire social circle had collapsed. Her best friend, Carly, gone. Her book club ladies, radio silent. Even the real estate partner who used to brag about her refined business instincts had unfollowed her on every platform. But the cherry on top? She was evicted from the condo she used part of the inheritance to pay for. Because, turns out, she never actually transferred the deed. It still belonged to the estate. And I had that estate frozen. She moved back into her boyfriend's cramped rental on the outskirts of town, while he awaited a court summons for his own fraud case. And people noticed. Small-town gossip spreads like gasoline meeting fire. The hearing was scheduled for April 6th. It wasn't criminal yet, but the civil suit was serious. Forgery, misappropriation, intentional deception. The judge was sharp. No nonsense. The kind who wore steel in her gaze and carried no patience for theatrics. Danielle tried to look innocent. She wore pale blue, minimal makeup, hair down. I wore black, because I was done pretending. The evidence was undeniable. The concealed will, the asset transfers, the voice memo, the receipts from Drew, the emails from Aunt Gloria's sworn affidavit. And when the estate attorney played the voicemail Danielle left me, the mistake before me won. The judge visibly flinched. Danielle sobbed on cue, claimed emotional stress, blamed her boyfriend, blamed me. I just wanted to preserve Mom's memory, she whispered through tears. But I didn't even need to respond. The document spoke louder than I ever could. Then, something happened that none of us expected. Danielle's ex-boyfriend, the one she used to keep quiet, came forward. He requested to speak on record. We thought it was for leverage. Instead, he dropped the nuclear bomb. She told me her sister was weak, that she'd never fight back, that by the time anyone figured it out, she'd already have control of everything. She even said, and I quote, he looked around the courtroom, cleared his throat. My mother always loved a fighter. Too bad she gave birth to a pacifist first. I felt the whole room lean in. Danielle went pale, like her blood had just drained to the floor. She muttered something to her lawyer, but it was too late. As the hearing drew to a close, Judge Palmer asked if we had anything else to submit. I looked at Preston. He nodded. From his briefcase, he pulled a small sealed envelope. Unopened, yellowing with time. Mom's handwriting on the front. To be opened only if everything goes sideways. The judge raised a brow. What's in it? A letter. Possibly final instructions from the deceased, Preston said. She allowed it. We watched as the judge sliced it open with a letter opener and began reading. Her eyebrows lifted, then dropped. And then she set it down slowly. In this letter, your mother outlines her awareness that Danielle might contest or conceal the revised will. She names several assets, including the lake cabin, the charity accounts, and her jewelry as conditionally tied to moral conduct and legal integrity. She looked at Danielle. You are no longer entitled to any of them. Danielle gasped. You can't. I just did. After the ruling, Danielle didn't speak to me again. Not at the courthouse. Not at the mediation that followed. Not even when the last of her stolen accounts were liquidated and returned to the estate. But I saw her one more time. At the cemetery. It was fall. Leaves were amber and gold. Mom's headstone had just been updated with a new quote. Love is louder than silence. Always. She stood there alone, wearing a hoodie and sunglasses. No makeup. No entourage. Just a woman staring at a grave and wondering where it all went wrong. I didn't interrupt her. I just watched from my car. And for the first time since this began, I felt, not pity, but peace. I thought it was over. I really did. After the ruling, Danielle disappeared. No texts. No social media. No angry phone calls or cryptic late-night voicemails. Just silence. I took that silence as surrender. Big mistake. Because people like my sister don't disappear. They recalculate. They watch. They wait. And then, when you're breathing easier, they strike. It came on a Wednesday. I was volunteering at the shelter, folding blankets when my phone buzzed. Unknown number. Normally I'd ignore it, but something in my gut told me to pick up. I wish I hadn't. Hi, this is Kate Morrison from the County Land Office. I just had a quick question about your signature on the Oak Trail transfer. I froze. What transfer? There was a pause. The sale of the Oak Trail property. You co-signed it last week. Is that right? My voice barely came out. I've never even been to Oak Trail. It took 30 seconds to realize what Danielle had done. She forged my signature. Again. This time, on the only plot of land Mom had earmarked for a memorial garden in my name. Danielle sold it to a developer for cash. And that's when I knew. She was going to burn down every last thing I loved before she walked away. Danielle thought she was smart. She thought since the ruling had already settled the estate, any remaining assets not explicitly itemized could be contested or moved. She used a third-party shell buyer to hide the sale. She didn't think I'd find out. She didn't think anyone was watching. She was wrong, because while she was trying to erase my mother's wishes, I'd been working on something else. Something better. Something bigger. The charity my mom and I started was small, but it was legally registered and had its own board. Quietly, I transferred every remaining penny from the liquidated estate into the charity's name. Every penny, which meant that land. Even though she sold it, the ownership was still disputed, because Mom had written in her handwritten letter that it was intended for nonprofit memorial purposes only, not resale, not redevelopment, and her name was still on the title. I brought it to court, fast-tracked an emergency injunction, but I didn't stop there. I called every reporter who had covered the inheritance case, and I handed them everything. Emails, receipts, forgery reports, court transcripts, the voicemail, the quote from her ex-boyfriend in sworn testimony. Her last name made headlines for all the wrong reasons again. 2 weeks later, Danielle showed up at my door. No cameras, no dramatics, just her. Eyes tired, skin pale, mouth tight. You made your point, she said. I didn't say anything. You ruined me. No, I said calmly. You ruined yourself. I just turned the lights on so everyone could see. She reached into her bag and pulled out a folder. This is the deed, she muttered. To Oak Trail. I convinced the buyer to void it. I told them you were sick, that I'd made a mistake. I took the folder, thumbing through the notarized papers. You want forgiveness? I asked. She shook her head. No, I want to stop losing. I stared at her. Then stopped lying. She looked like she wanted to cry, but no tears came. She turned and walked down the porch steps, the wind catching the edge of her coat. And just like that, she was gone. It had been exactly 364 days since Danielle forged my name and nearly erased my legacy. 364 days since I stood in a courtroom and watched her world unravel. Since then, life had been quiet. I moved into a small lakeside cottage outside town, the kind of place that smelled like cedar and always had a warm breeze off the water. I planted a memorial garden in the backyard, just like Mom had always wanted. Not for spite, not for symbolism, for healing. But healing's funny. It creeps in slowly until someone knocks on the door and tries to rip it all away again. The envelope was cream, thick, and elegant. No return address. Inside, a gold-trimmed wedding invitation. Danielle, getting married. Again, to a man I'd never met. A wealth management consultant. Translation, someone who probably didn't know a single thing about her past. But that wasn't what got me. It was the note scribbled at the bottom in her handwriting. I want to make this right. Come, please. I stared at it for 10 minutes. Part of me wanted to shred it. The other part wanted answers. The wedding was held at an old vineyard outside Charleston. Very fancy. Very Instagram. I went alone. No fanfare. No intention to make a scene. And yet, every head turned when I walked in. Because despite everything Danielle did, I was still the story. Her story. The girl whose inheritance was stolen. The one who exposed the family. The one who didn't fold. I took a seat near the back. Danielle spotted me mid-toast. Her smile froze, but she didn't look away. Later, during the reception, she approached me. Alone. You came, she said softly. I did, I replied. Why? We stepped outside, into the garden behind the venue. Fairy lights twinkled above us. Jazz music floated through the air like it belonged to someone else's dream. Danielle didn't waste time. I lied, she said. I said nothing. I lied when I said I wanted to fix things, she went on. I wanted to prove I could win, that I could survive you. I let the silence stretch. But tonight, she whispered, I realized something. No matter how far I run, no matter how many people I marry or fool or charm, my story is still tied to yours. I turned to her. And what do you want now? She swallowed hard. Peace. I reached into my clutch and pulled out a folded piece of paper. I handed it to her. What is this? She asked. Everything you still technically own. Your portion of what's left in Mom's trust. I transferred it back into your name yesterday. Her eyes widened. But why? Because I don't want it anymore. Not the money. Not the power. Not the drama. I want to stop carrying you. She opened the paper. Stared at it like it was a trap. It's real, I said. Signed. Notarized. Yours. Danielle started to speak, then didn't. She just folded it, tucked it into her dress, and nodded. And for a split second, I saw her walls break. Just a little. I left early, before the cake, before the dancing. I didn't want to be part of the fairy tale she was building. But as I walked to my car, someone stopped me. A tall woman. Gray eyes. About 60. Expensive suit. Quiet authority. Are you your character's name? She asked. Yes. Do I know you? She extended her hand. My name's Andrea Morton. I'm a private estate consultant. I used to work with your mother. I blinked. Sorry. Why are you here? She smiled faintly. I came on Danielle's request. But now that I've seen you, I think you're the one I need to talk to. She handed me a folder. Inside, another will. Signed 6 months after the one we'd fought over. And this one? This one changed everything. Because it left everything to me. All of it. Turns out, Mom had one final play. And Danielle had never known. Your mother filed this with our office, Andrea said. She said she was waiting for the right time to release it. I looked up. And when's that? Andrea tilted her head. She said, when my daughters finally see who they really are. The vineyard lights flickered in the distance. And I realized something. This wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about truth. And sometimes, truth waits. Waits. Until you're ready to carry it.